Traveling to town. When I was very young, we always went to town in the flatbed wagon. We'd leave as soon as the day's first heat had stopped the mare's breath from forming clouds in the air. Kids sprawled in the back among dusty bushels of corn and beans. As we rode down Main Street, the town revealed itself backwards for my sister and me to see. We loved the brick and sandstone buildings and the farmer's market with its sawdust floor. Best of all was Monkey Ward with its large wood-paneled center room and the little wires with paper messages that flew back and forth like trained birds. Grandpa always had money for ice cream, and we'd sit, as Grandma did the shopping at Safeway, we'd sit on the brick steps in the sunlight and listen to the screen door bang across the street calling to us. Grandpa always had money for ice cream, and we'd ride home down Main Street licking ice cream, watching the town reveal itself backwards again in afternoon sun. I'm an old guy, you know. This was before the vacuum tubes. They clipped your money onto a wire and it flew up to the second floor with the cashier. Inside Osage, the town crier's first bell sounds, calling dancers to get dressed and head for the arbor. Soon drums and singing will float across these wide fields. I sit for a moment on a wood-splitting stump by the low concrete porch and remember how the houses are built practically on the ground, how the rivers and creeks have their own distinct smells, how it feels to be so far from the main road that you can see 50 miles across low hills and gullies covered in prairie grass, rippling in a breeze all the way from Nebraska. Meadowlarks whistle sunlit melodies, and a single shrill hawk's shriek arouses my heart. Tourists may see gas stations, farms, cattle guards across red dirt roads, and asphalt highways speeding through one-street towns. But if you look carefully, there's another land hidden here, the invisible vertical to this horizontal world. Rising up as a high school in the middle of nowhere, glimpsed in a blue flash of thunderstorm, it's an older land where war honors are still being sung, where cooking fires still send out a warm invitation of good smells. I feel it at the dances on the third day, during the last songs, when the circle of women singers stand up behind the men and sing behind the men. Drumsticks swing up like the beating wings of an eagle. Dancers circle, then face into the singers as a shimmering column of sound and light rises up from the drum and races toward the sky. I'm a traditional dancer. I love dancing. Being raised rural Indian in Oklahoma, there are occasions when you feel invisible in your own country. And I was trying to capture that. But I also like to imagine what the world would be like if my grandpa was still alive. What would it be like if we lived the way he did? My tribe is Wajaje, Osage. This is called Wajaje Airlines. Once I died in a plane crash, and when I got up, no one could see me. It was a free flight. Dad worked for the company, but I asked for my money back anyway. It didn't work. They couldn't hear me either. I decided to catch the reservation taxi and spin my French leather gloves on a ride out to the bar on Eagle Creek. The Indian bartender was off that night. I had no money for a drink. The only other Indian there was Leroy Stanstall. He could see the shape I was in, so he bought me a beer, but he drank half of it before he slid it down the bar. I sat down in the corner to write an autobiography of my early years. I was poor as dirt, and my mother was in love with a hitchhiker. I'm blind in one eye where my sister hit me with a park swing. She didn't mean to, her little legs pumping as she ran away from the neighborhood goat. My legs are crooked from a deficiency of early nourishment. My parents fed me from a book. My skull is flat in places. We weren't allowed cradle boards back then, so I fell down between the bed and the wall. I'm tall because my dad just caught me by the heels. I'm named after a paratrooper. He was killed at the Battle of the Bulge, which is why I'm so skinny. I'm deaf in one ear and always turn to the left. My lungs are immense from carrying dead Indians around. My ribs ache from laughing at my reflection in the mirror. My eyeballs got turned around in the birth canal and stare inward into a space defined by superstitions of a summer night, by dark birds against stars. I don't know why I'm so alone. I don't think I was born that way. I have 2 sons, both almost as old as I am. All my first 3 wives left me on the same night. Being Eagle Clan, I dream of fancy dancing. I've got the legs for it from chasing girls across the prairie, but my memory of the old songs is drowned out by a century of gunshots and car horns. I love to travel. Alaska, Tulsa, Flagstaff, Paris, Venice, but I always come home. Old Hamoe, old walks in the night, he has even less of a chance than I do. Someday, my dad and I will build an airplane so light that it will float. We'll take my mother and sister and all my wives and kids and relatives and all the people. We'll fly back up to the stars, where we used to live. All those holes up there in the sky, that's where we'll find our refuge. Part of the Osage origin story talks about how we've always been here, but at the beginning we had no bodies. We were disembodied beings, and the elders said, well, we should figure out how to have bodies. The kids are coming. So we flew up into the sky to seek the counsel of the sun, moon, and stars. And when we came back, we had bodies. Excuse me. Islands of light. I love the Southwest, the mesa towns and that sort of thing. Islands of light. The quality of light above a mesa town reminds me of the city of Venice. There aren't many places left where people have lived for a long time and where we haven't changed the light around and above the space. Light is usually the first thing to go. Sound is more noticeable, but also more malleable. Our machines can be silenced. Light is something different. Maybe it has to do with islands, places where cars don't work. When speed is rare, people give off a different kind of reflection, cleaner, more clear, more thoughtful. I love living where I can see large distances across the earth, and I love the pale blue air above the mesa towns. Acoma, Shomwapovi, Third Mesa. When I think of them, for a moment, I am my own island of light. Maybe a couple of love poems. Birthplace. I remember the Indian hospital where I was born. It's built around a courtyard with a garden and trees in the center. Years later, I would go back with my mother and wait in the high-ceilinged, white-wall reception room with the dark wooden benches where the people sat. Through the arches of the courtyard, you could see the window of the maternity ward and the bush that bloomed in late spring with fawn yellow flowers. They say a nurse held me up to that window the minute I opened my eyes. I still look for that color, a fawn yellow glint in the eyes of the woman I'm about to love. Love song. Love song. Picking watercress at dawn, the earth squeezes water from itself, dripping green on the ferns of the creek bottom. Suddenly, I want you beside me in the soft, dank mud. Her one foot sticks out from under the covers as she sleeps. Strange that her dreams should reveal all my secrets. I'm assailed by memories and uncommon reminiscences, as if lights in dwellings on nearby hills were fires in front of the caves of the ancients. As if the softness and fragrance of your skin against my cheek had always been with me. As if I were newborn and could still remember the womb and beyond. Sheets of water break in slow waves against the buildings of the city. Rain is falling in light drops like snow or kisses, sighing down steep, narrow streets on a Sunday morning. Her bed is a warm boat that travels. Poem before I sleep. And if I passed away now, some might say success rolled by him like a golden hoop. I can only reply, you should have seen the ocean from the top of that hill, horizon split by a bolt of lightning. Or heard the laughter of my girlfriends as they acted out the drama of the lost key to the sake closet. with the door open to the sea breeze. Or smell the cooking fires under the camp arbors in Oklahoma as the last sound of drummers and singers faded into reflective thought at the edge of evening. Being old, I kind of look backwards and forwards. One of my sons came in from a flea market and put a newspaper, the Chronicle, down on the table in front of me, and of course there was a poem there. Burdens of the Day, November 12th, 1936. On the day they opened the San Francisco-Oakland Bay Bridge, Japan put on a dragon's mask and marched into China. Archduke Otto of Austria got back the Habsburg throne from Mussolini, who also sold Czechoslovakia to Hungary in return for Ethiopia. The day they opened the San Francisco-Oakland Bay Bridge, a mongrel dog trotted out of the Louisiana forest near a clapboard home of a WPA worker's nameless wife. She pulled a fair-haired, healthy baby from the dog's teeth and named it Moses. Some thought he was the new Messiah. The day they opened the San Francisco-Oakland Bay Bridge, there was a savage attack on Madrid. Los Franceses Bridge. From Los Franceses Bridge, bayonets glinted in the moonlight. Fascist batteries north of Cuatro Viento set another place for dinner with a professor's family on the Paseo de San Vicente. A hole, really. It burst under the table, killing 5 and wounding 2 children. On the day they opened the San Francisco-Oakland Bay Bridge, a grave began to sing in Cleveland. Ave Maria came up clearly from the side above Helen Pelsar, Franciscan lay nun, 10 years dead. The day they opened the San Francisco-Oakland Bay Bridge, a Peruvian Indian poet, Cesar Vallejo, received permission to leave exile in Paris and return to Spain for a 2-month visit. Then the governments changed their mind. From his deathbed, he left for Spain, and finally no one could stop him. The day they opened the San Francisco-Oakland Bay Bridge, Americans could drive straight through from one edge of the continent to the other. And Albert Redwing, a full-blood Osage Indian, walking down the brick streets of Harmony, Oklahoma, clearly and suddenly heard a huge door slam. It was no gunshot. There was no echo. And no one was around. Ravens continued their cawing from cottonwoods on the side of the hill. Albert turned and his braids swung against his wool coat. 4 deer grazing in an open field by the fire station disappeared. One by one, the bluebirds stopped singing and all the foxes disappeared. Albert felt the earth being ripped into large square fields. Henceforth, all wounds would be sutured with barbed wire. The day they opened the San Francisco-Oakland Bay Bridge, Albert Redwing got home just at dusk. And soon people began arriving in cars and buggies, their pale lights floating around the side of the hill. That night, they worked on singing the world back together. That night, the sound of the drum rolled across the land like a heartbeat. On the day after they opened the San Francisco-Oakland Bay Bridge in the early hours of the morning, Albert Redwing came upstairs to his sleeping wife and children. With their dream hands, they took his drum and eased him into bed. With their dream hearts, they summoned his song and sent it out again to search the red dawn for those not strong enough to stand, for those overcome by fear, for those thrown down by those who can't see that they fling themselves down, for those whose names are hidden, for those whose poverty cost them a fortune, for those who can't see that the truth always contradicts itself, for the earth whose arms of abundance are about to close, for those who can't see that they are the strands that weave this world together. One plus one equals. This has 4 epigrams here. What is it we're looking for? What can we really possess? What do we need in order to live well? How will we survive on this earth? In the world of voices talking, of sirens calling day and night, of trains screeching and rumbling, in a world of frantic street corner consumption and pink neon need and kids too weak to cry, in a world where plague threatens whole nations and fear of plague can shroud love, In a world of asphyxiated camaraderie, in the roar of jets and false speeches, how is it possible to speak of love with any hope of love enduring? How is it possible to know about children, what they fear, whether they want to be here at all? How is it possible when so much misery shows up in so many? Now the simple act of washing the foot, the hind leg, of buying a new pot to cook in, has an unknown consequence, a pattern of importance. Where does the water come from? Out of whose mouth was it taken? Where was the pot made? How transported? At what cost to the world are these black pants I pull on over my two legs? I slip on my shoes of vanished sky, my wristwatch of imprisoned time. I wrap myself in a coat of silenced birdsong. The miracle of the loaves and fishes has run amok, has run to impossible numbers and innumerable debt. We have wished the multiplication of everything, and now, like deranged bees in a hive, we struggle to count it all. How much longer can we let the mathematics of greed be our equation of being? Thank you. One long one, one short one. Note on the modern world. A crumpled piece of paper with symbols on it. A canyon wall with symbols on it. A skyscraper wall with advertising on it. How small we are, how large. Have I forgotten how to be respectful, how to walk barefoot? What do we say to one another before we sit in a room watching images on a screen? I cross one leg over us. I cross one leg over the other. I sit civilized and mute. Have I forgotten how to sit on the earth and to sing and tell stories? We are grown too numerous. We can say they were lucky. They had rivers, canyon walls, traditions old as the sun. But we cannot cross back over the confusion of days, that time without memory or song. It's buried in snow at Wounded Knee, at Tierra del Fuego, or on the Arctic Circle. It's lost across oceans in barren fields, or drowned in the holds of ships from Africa and Asia. And we have our cities. Cities fascinate and disturb me. There's so many of us. Confidently, we march past one another. We strive, we work, we love. We're defiant, aggressive. We spell each emotion, each nuance correctly. We've provided the spirits of the woods with electricity, put radios popping tunes on the shoulders of young shamans. And when we blunder, my God, it's genius. We turn it into $1 million. How dare I complain? How dare I remember the blackness of sky lit only by stars, the white seed of cottonwood trees floating on the wind like light, aimless birds. Of course, I'm saying this only because I'm poor, or because my people were once overrun by a stampede of others. But that's not it. Allow me to remove my face. Here, hold it by the ears. Now you see the white bone of skull and teeth. Yes, this is the way I am, full of kindness and contemplation, smiling out at the world from an elemental stance. Now I see clearly the twin globes spinning in their sockets, the many billions of us spinning in our bodies around the axis of our spirit. Each day now we spin faster. We wobble and sway with the speed and wind. The Stone Age and the next century meet daily in our valleys and streets. We are some of us so different that not even gesture can cross the great silence. We are at all stages at once. The ape and the spaceman touch on the full circle. The diametrically opposed meet. Rich and poor view each other's excesses, shamefaced and angry. It is only natural to meet life with such passion. How can any one of us, born as we are from contradiction, escape the tide that flows around and through us? The day is about to end, like a poor man thrown out of his house, like the sobbing of the earth at the edge of the flood. The light is turning dark. The gods are stepping down, changing places. Between the walls of the canyon, the river draws to itself the domain of shadow and reflection. How small we are, how large. When I first started writing, my poems sounded like prayers or meditations, and I think I've come back around to that. A little bit different, though. This is called Pull. I pull the shirt off over my head, pull the covers up. pull feathers from my fingers, circles of smoke from my eyes. I pull dawn from sleep, generosity from the last bell of my strength. I shake debt out of my shoe. I lean back and loosen the rope from around my neck, from around my feet, splashing down shallow creek beds, from around the spirits, flying back to their home in the sky. I unbutton the top button of the storehouse of linen, the hiding place of all-night dancing, the pathway of necessity and tenderness. I open the back door of summer night, sip turquoise light from the leading edge of storm, and pull long black hair from writhing strands from the wind. I pull names from silence, a strong heart from laughter, and dreams from the nubs on raw buckskin. I pull native nations and the good red road from the spirits of the people dancing and singing around me. I grab time from the hands of the clock, bend it into a hoop, and give this moment back to the pure, bare, original day. Thank you.